Did you know that Jesus never called God God? I just Googled it. Jesus' native tongue is Aramaic, right? And in Aramaic, God means Allah. Allah and God are the same word. So Jesus himself is calling God Allah. This actually shocked me, and I don't think many Muslims and many Christians would know this. We're all worshipping the same God, the one God. So why is there so much division between the religions? This just absolutely shocks me. We all have the same stories. If you actually stop and read the Bible and read the Quran, you will notice so many similarities. There is more similarities than there are differences. We should all be united. It just upsets me how much hate and how much division there is between all the religions when we're all worshipping and celebrating the same creator. So where did this division come from?
What do you think the purpose of the planes really was in the whole grand scheme of things? Was it more just a show, or do you think they intended the planes to hit the building and then use the explosives as maybe their fallback plan?
Well, you need both. You need a likely, you need to blame it on Muslims. So you had to have hijackers. You had to try to prove that they were on the plane, which they failed miserably. You had to prove that they could fly planes by putting them in CIA-controlled schools, which they failed such education miserably. And they probably weren't even on the planes. So, according to most researchers, anyway. So you had to have that element so that you could go to war, which is the whole purpose here in Iraq, in Afghanistan and Iraq. So you had to have that element, and then you have the cover under which you could then destroy the buildings, blaming it on the planes and the fires.
You know, you mentioned something that just sparked a thought in my brain, right? You had to have Muslims. When you look at terrorist organizations around the world, don't necessarily have to be Muslim. It could be, fill in the blank, this terrorist organization. They love to take credit for anything and every act of terror that occurs throughout the world, even when they don't actually do it. That's common knowledge. We know that's common practice of these terror groups. A few days after the attacks on 9/11, Osama bin Laden put out a very specific statement saying, I am not responsible for these attacks. They're going to try to pin it on me. And I just find that, not really a question for you, I just find that to be very interesting when we know that that's generally the opposite action that most terror groups take.
Yes, he made a couple of such statements, and I'm actually looking for the one that I remember word for word but can't find anymore. And that was, if you want to know who was responsible for this attack, look to the shadow government within your own government who wants to make this century a century of conflict between Islam and Christianity.
That's right.
That's a quote from him that I can't find anywhere.
You're right, though.
It's fascinating. Well, I'll tell you, this has been both revealing, I think, educational, and just almost overwhelming, because it hits on so much more than what I had thought coming into it, right? It's my suspicions were already high. Seeing all the live video footage, or I guess recorded video footage, of just the way the buildings went down, and just kind of, I think buildings.
Iran declared war on Israel. You cannot sit here and justify the claim that Iran did not want to kill Israelis, that it sent these hundreds of drones knowing they would all be miraculously stopped.
Hezbollah has tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of highly sophisticated missiles pointed directly at every single major Israeli city, including Tel Aviv. If Iran wanted to do a kind of response against Israel that you're suggesting they wanted, they had that capability, and they didn't, because they're a rational, restrained country that didn't want to end up in a world war. I know. The only rational, restrained countries are America, Israel, and the West. That's what your media tells you all the time, so I know that you believe that. But there are actually other rational, restrained countries in the world, too. You're always told there's a new Hitler in Iran, there's a new Hitler in Russia, there's a new Hitler named Hamas, there's a new Hitler in Syria, and you believe it all the time, and you stand up and you cheer all those evil, irrational countries.
I never said that.
If you look at who who the ones are who are starting wars, it is your country, the United States, and along with Israel as well. And that is just the reality if you remove yourself from Western propaganda.
Well, you're not going to support me. And, you're not going to support me because I don't want your money. You want to control your own politician. That's fine.
You Jews won't support me because I don't want your money, and you Jews, you like to support and control your own politicians.
I stood with your prime minister at the White House to recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
Your prime minister, he's talking to American Jews. He's their president. It's an explicit charge of dual loyalty. Trump is literally telling American Jews they consider Benjamin Netanyahu to be their head of state.
If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. And I think that people sitting right next door in Iran, young people, and many others will say, the time of such regimes, of such despots, is gone.